We are starting now. Have a great show.
Okay.
It's time for Success Profiles Radio with your host, Brian K. Wright. Have you ever wondered if there's more to life than you're currently living? Then Success Profiles Radio is the program for you. Every week, we'll explore different aspects of success and how to apply them to your life. Guests will come from many different backgrounds, including expertise in leadership, business, relationships, careers, networking, health, overcoming adversity, and much more. Every show is a dose of inspiration. This is Success Profiles Radio. And now, here's your host, Brian K. Wright.
Hello and welcome to Success Profiles Radio. I'm your host, Brian K. Wright, and it's an absolute pleasure to be with you here today. I'm honored that you chose to spend part of your day with me here, and this is going to be a fantastic and amazing show. I will introduce my guest shortly, and I promise we're going to have a lot of fun today. I do want to take a minute or two to share some things I've been learning and thinking about lately, and I usually do this every single week. I did a Facebook Live a while back about beating procrastination, which was inspired by the 5-second rule written by Mel Robbins. We tend to put things off, and it's because we are trying to avoid the feelings associated with procrastination. We might be afraid of failing, for example. She outlined a 3-step process for beating procrastination. Step 1 is to forgive yourself. Forgive yourself for putting things off. Forgive yourself for allowing yourself to get into your current situation. Step 2 is to visualize the future version of yourself and ask what that version of you would do in your situation. Step 3 is to just do it. So anything you truly want is within your grasp. The only way to get it is to start, and you will always be very, very glad you did. If you've not picked up my latest book, it's called The Greatest Lessons I Learned from My Coach. It's available on Amazon. And along with a few collaborative authors, I and they put together a great book about the lessons that we learn from our coaches. And if you have not gotten a coach yet, you'll want to read this to see what you can possibly learn. And if you do have a coach, maybe some of these things and some of these stories will resonate with you. So once again, it's on Amazon. It's called The Greatest Lessons I Learned from My Coach, and it's on Amazon. My guest this week is Israel Duran. Let me tell you about him. He turns entrepreneurs into industry authorities who command a 5-figure speaking fee. His Service of Speaking framework has generated over $2 million in 24 months by positioning experts on prestigious stages and high-ticket programs. After building a community of over 300,000 people, and after landing a TEDx talk, he created a proven system for scaling businesses through speaking. His mastermind routinely lands clients that pay him over $50,000, also routinely helping people land major acquisitions and speaking tours. He helps coaches land high-paying clients, combining stage presence, deal flow, and strategic positioning to build 7-figure businesses that run on authority instead of ads. And of course, his mission is to turn expertise into empire-building opportunities that attract wealth automatically. So here we are with my very special guest, Israel Duran. Israel, how are you? Welcome to the show.
Brian, thank you so much for having me. It's going to be a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first question I'd love to ask is, did you envision early in your life that you would be where you are now?
Absolutely not. Came from very humble beginnings, and it's by God's grace. I actually had a near-death experience happen to me at the age of 7. I would have died prematurely, just like unfortunately, my dad passed as well at 29 years old of a massive heart attack, and I was only about 3 months when my dad died. I don't believe my mom would have been able to handle it, but after coming from that experience, I was very grateful and thankful. And, to be fully transparent, never believed or thought that I would be where I am today.
Wow. So tell us a little bit about your career path. You obviously help coaches with building a speaking based business, but you weren't always doing this. So tell us about that.
Brian, I love to teach people principles because once people learn the laws or principles of how things work, then the advice that we give, especially with business, makes more sense because then they can see, okay, well, I see you're implementing a law, right? Kind of like the law of gravity.
Hmm.
Like if the law of gravity works everywhere at any time at all places. And what I love to do is I love to help coaches, business owners grow through speaking because we actually leverage a principle that works for anyone, right? Anyone that actually applies the law to their business. And I would love to talk about a couple of those principles here on the show.
Yeah, go ahead.
The first law that I see a lot of people out there, trying to grow their business, but sometimes they get stuck. When you look at industry data, about 90% of small businesses, they say, go out of business in the first 10 years. And about 90% of small businesses will never reach the multiple seven-figure mark. So in my business, I wanted to kind of like break through that statistic, and I wanted to know, okay, what is the underlying like consensus between businesses that are doing, over seven figures in revenue a year or multiple seven figures and beyond. And I found that this law, the principle of impact, is really the consensus and is at the heartbeat of that result, if you will. So like for me, a lot of the people that I serve, they're not just about making money. It's more about impact and serving others and making a difference. And we all know and we all agree that in order to make an impact, like if we want to reach hundreds of thousands of people, we're going to need millions of dollars to do so. We're going to need the resources to do so. So the principle of impact really outlines four specific steps in the right order that if somebody follows, if somebody's a business owner, a coach looking to grow, if they follow these four steps, they're going to reach their goals financially. And at the same time, they're going to be able to serve and make an impact. And I would love to go over that deeply.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
The first step is education, but it's not just any education. Like typically when I say that, Brian, people think it's like college education, university, which is super important for those that are studying to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, or trade. However, in America, at least, the education system, in my personal opinion, doesn't give us everything that we need, because when you look at statistics, over 80 to 70% of people that go to college, they don't actually go and do what they went to study for, right? It's including myself. I have my bachelor's and master's degree as well, and I'm not currently doing what I went to school for. So it's not just college education. What I'm referring to is what I call specialized education. It's learning from someone that has already done what you want to do, and then doing what you need to do to work with that person or get the access that you can to them so they can then teach you and then lead you with the right education. Now, when we get the right education, especially when it comes to business, we'll almost naturally unlock step number 2, which has to do with systems development. I'm a student of history, Brian, and one of the things I love to geek out on is science and data, right? Mm-hmm. And one of the things I noticed, and it's very obvious if people just do the research, is when you look in the marketplace, there's a wealth gap, right? Typically, when you look at it, and there's numbers up and down based on the surveys, but on average, it's coming in to say, Brian, that 1% of the population owns about 90% to 85% of the world's wealth, right? Whereas then you have 10% of the population that only owns about 10 to 15% of the world's wealth. Now, I'm not a math major, right? I love data, but to me, that's a wealth gap. Wouldn't you say, Brian?
Yeah, for sure.
It's a gap, right? So like, why is that gap? Because the wealthy in the top 5% of people, they understand that systems and assets build wealth. And that's why number 2 is systems development. And when I'm talking about systems development, I'm talking about systems that build value in a certain industry, in a certain market, in a certain environment, right? Because when we build value and we build that connection with our audience or the markets that we want to serve, step number 3 happens almost automatically. And step number 3 is what we call influence, right? And I would not be where I am today, talk about success, if it wasn't for the influence that I had to build and in building. And the influence wasn't able to be built without the systems that, I developed and are using now, right? So like to any business owners that are listening, or if you are getting started in business, it's super essential for you to really look at the systems and assets that you should create around your business to then unlock the influence. And once you unlock the influence, it will lead you to step number 4, which is actually creating income or monetizing your influence. And then once you have the resources, then you're able to then go ahead and invest in causes so you can make an impact. And that's the principle of impact.
That's fantastic. I'm guessing you've read Think and Grow Rich a lot.
You know what? I not necessarily. I've had you're like the third or fourth person that's said that to me. I guess like he teaches similar principles.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes, absolutely. So, as you've progressed through your journey, what do you think was your rock bottom moment and how do you get out of it?
Rock bottom moment was 2018, September 5th. And it was a day I'll never forget because my second daughter, Annabelle, was born 4 days prior. And I got into this car accident that, again, should have took my life. But because of grace and divine intervention, I was given yet another second chance. But I'm thankful for the car accident, Brian, because what it did is it got me uncomfortable. It shook some things in my life and it allowed for me to stop playing small. Sometimes we have to hit rock bottom. At least that was for me, Brian, to get to a place where I said, you know what? I'm living on borrowed time. I'm not gonna get the time back that I already wasted. I gotta start now. I gotta like play big now. They say there's two times to plant a tree, they said. The best times to plant a tree.
Hmm.
They say 10 years ago, and then the next day is today. It's now.
Right.
Right. And that's what I would say. Like it was rock bottom, but it was also a blessing.
Wow, that's absolutely fantastic. We've got 2 minutes to our first break. What do you think is the highest value skill anyone can learn? I can pretty much guess. I ask this question of everybody, but I'd love for you to answer it anyway.
Well, for me, it's definitely communication with connection and empathy, right? It's anywhere like when you look at the three levels of growth or money, the money you make yourself, the money other people make you, and the money your money makes you, communication is at the essence of all three of those.
Hmm.
If you're not able to communicate to your clients, your employees, your investors, your partners, your potential collaborators, nothing will happen.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think is the biggest mistake you have ever made? It can be financial, doesn't have to be, or it could be something that you didn't start soon enough, or it could be something that you held on to for way too long.
The biggest mistake I've made is not getting the right education sooner than later. Like I wish I would have got the level of understanding that I have now before I got started because it would have allowed me to save time, which is infinitely more worth than any amount of money.
Yeah. Oh, that's a beautiful answer. I love that. We've got about a minute to our break, and of course, I do want to ask, do you have coaches?
Do I have coaches? Yes, I do.
Absolutely. How
I
many do you
have
have?
well, some of my coaches are not alive, like Dr. Miles Monroe, God bless his soul.
Hmm.
I have about right now, I have a lot of spiritual mentors as well, Pastor Ramon, um, Pastor Phil. I have a lot of men that are in their 60s and 70s in my life that pour into me.
Hmm.
And I'm very grateful. And I was raised by my mom, a single mom. She was a single mom for at least until I was 5. So I have a great respect for women as well.
Hmm.
And yeah.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that. And thank you for listening. We will be right back. This is Success Profiles Radio. Please stay with us. Don't go away. And we will talk more about finding your purpose and speaking to build your business and so much more. We'll be right back. Awesome. The commercials will play in the background. We can talk for a minute or so.
Cool.
Yeah. So, where are you today?
I'm in Connecticut.
You are. Okay. I'm in Iowa.
Nice.
Farmland.
Well, I love the countryside.
Yeah, for sure. We've had a lot of rain, and so the mosquitoes have been awful for about a week.
Mm.
Yeah, I'm
That's
hoping
that side I don't like so much. The
that
mosquito.
part I don't like. The temperature has been, pretty decent. But yeah, the mosquitoes have been out, and I'm really hoping they go away soon. I just took the dog out right before the show, and I didn't get bothered by mosquitoes at all. So I'm hoping that's a trend.
Yeah. Have you ever been up to New York?
I have. I have. I've been
Nice.
there a couple times.
Wow. When was the
Yeah.
last time you were in New York?
Success
Ooh.
Profiles Radio. So many people live their lives wanting more than they currently have. And this show will clearly demonstrate the principles if I can do it, you can do it. So let's get back to the show. This is Success Profiles Radio. And here again is your host, Brian K. Wright.
And we are back. This is Success Profiles Radio. My very special guest this week is Israel Duran. And if you have not downloaded and subscribed to Success Profiles Radio, you can do that on Apple Podcasts, iTunes. You can find it on Spotify. You can find it on Audible, on iHeartRadio. You can even ask Alexa or Siri to play Success Profiles Radio, and you will hear the most recent episode. How cool is that? So once again, Here we are with my very special guest, Israel Duran. So, Israel, I want to ask you, what do you think it takes to be a successful entrepreneur in your experience?
I feel like there's two things that really are the key to be a successful entrepreneur. First, I want to identify what success, right? Because that word success, many people, Brian, as you know, have different definitions of success.
Yep.
I define success as someone being able to accomplish their purpose and serving the people that they're called to serve, and at the same time profiting from that in a healthy way, especially in business. I also see success as in your pursuit of financial growth, also making sure that your relationships are also growing as well.
Hmm.
Because a lot of times people will exchange, they'll exchange, financial growth in exchange for their family or other something else, right? And
Hmm.
I don't believe we need to take that route. I
Right.
believe is that as long as we have the right education, we're able to build our businesses in a way that it could be successful and nothing else needs to suffer. So with that being said, the two things that I feel that entrepreneurs in this century and beyond, and when you look at history, uh, really bring the underlying success are innovation and marketing. Those two things are key to be successful in the financial sense with any business that you're in.
Yes. Oh, that's a beautiful answer. And it's really true because if you're not innovating, then you're operating eventually in a world that doesn't exist anymore. And marketing is important because if no one knows who you are, you can't impact anyone. So I love that. So I know that finding purpose is a big part of your work, and I love this topic, and you help your clients find their purpose through which they can speak their story. So how important is it, and how do you find your purpose?
That is also, as you know, one of my favorite subjects to talk about because I
Hmm.
geek out, right?
Hmm.
About purpose. And it's almost like, the conversation of purpose, everybody's talking about it nowadays. But I like to take it from a different approach, if I may.
Yeah.
Like people, you ever heard of the expression the cart came before which came before the egg or the chicken?
Yes.
It's the same conversation I feel when it comes to purpose and identity,
Hmm.
right? Identity truly does precede purpose, right? Because I see a lot of people, Brian, that they've been doing something for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, and the thing that they're doing, their purpose at that time became their identity. And then when their thing got removed from them or taken away, then they spiral down into depression and negative thoughts, right? Because they think that maybe their identity was taken from them. But in reality, their identity wasn't taken from them. It was just the purpose that they were assigned to do in that season is now changing, right?
Hmm.
So to just help people heal with this and also get a better perspective on purpose, the way I help people identify their purpose is by first helping them understand who they are, right? Their identity,
Hmm.
right? And when I look at identity, I look at it in two ways, right? The yin and the yang, right? There's an identity that we have that is God given, whether regardless of what people's beliefs are, just based on whatever you believe, right? Your faith, right? That's an identity that you have to see yourself with. And
Hmm.
then number two, the other identity when it comes to business is your brand. It's your branding, right? Branding for me is your business identity. So once those two things are really centered and aligned, then we can kind of go into purpose and really talk about what purpose is, because purpose is a derivative of identity,
Hmm.
right? In other words, you know, like your purpose is an assignment that typically comes from, your business, your calling, what you've been put on earth to do. And that purpose is always connected, Brian, to people, right? I didn't know this at the time, but when I had my experience at the age of 7, when I had my NDE, my near death experience, and I came back, I didn't know why I was alive, Brian. I knew I was alive because of people, or excuse me, because of purpose, but I didn't know it was because of people. Like I didn't know that my P equaled P, right? Purpose equals people, right? And until I got older, right? So one of the things I love to do is I like to teach what I call the 4 questions of purpose to help others get clarity on their purpose. And this is something that I go through every single month, at least once a month myself, because it
Hmm.
allows for me to continue to grow with it and continue to get more effective as I grow when it comes to purpose and understanding.
Well, now we have to hear what these questions are. Oh, you still there? Israel, you still there?
I am still here. Mike just froze, but can you hear me?
Yes, I can now. So now we have to hear the four questions.
Yes, I am going to switch. One sec. Excuse me, everybody. I'm having technical. Check 1, 2. What about now?
Yep, we hear you just fine.
Awesome. Awesome. So, four questions of purpose, right? So, question number one is, what do you love to do? What do you love to do? That's question number one. Because a lot of people say, Israel, like, I don't know what my purpose is. Like, where do I start? I'm like, well, what do you love to do? Start there, right? I'll reveal it in a moment what that means. Question number two is, what do you hate? Right? Like, what do you actually hate? And that's a strong word, Brian.
Hmm.
I know a lot of people are like, whoa, what's going on here? But there's something that actually happens with love and hate that actually meet in the middle. There's a law, it's called the law of polarization. When
Mm.
you go all the way to the extreme cold, it gets to a point where it actually becomes hot and you'll get burnt. And then when you go extreme cold, you'll actually get to a point where it becomes hot and you'll get burnt. It's crazy how it works, and it meets in the middle. So those two questions, there's something that happens to help give people really clarity on their purpose, which I'll get to in a moment. That's in effect there with those two in the beginning. Question number three is, what makes you cry? Now, a lot of men, when they hear that, they're like, well, I don't cry, Israel. I'm a man's man. And I'm like, I understand. But true men cry, right? Like,
Mhm.
there's things that make me cry. There's a reason for it, right? Like, for me, one of the things that makes me cry is seeing orphans and widows in pain and lack and affliction, right? Because I lived that, right? When my dad passed, I was an orphan, and I saw my mother struggle, right? And I saw that, right? So I have a heart for that, right? Question number four is, what annoys you? What or who annoys you? And
Mm.
that question means something as well.
Yeah,
Those are the four questions.
those are great, great, great questions. I know that sometimes when I talk to people about their speaking career, and many times it's people who haven't really started yet, they don't think their story is important enough. They don't have the tragic thing that happened that turned their life around. But you don't have to have a tragic thing to start speaking, right?
Let me say this, right? And this is important, right? With the four questions, it connects with what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's one piece that I didn't share that I want to also close the loop. Like, what you love reveals a gift that you have. Okay. What you hate reveals a problem that you were born to solve, typically with the gifts that you have. What makes you cry reveals the situations that you're called to bring joy to. And the things that annoy you actually reveal the attributes that you're called to serve and wipe away in whatever industry you're called in. So taking these four together, Brian,
Hmm.
literally is really when people ask me, like, what do I speak on? Like the question you're referring to, it's like it's really based on those four questions together and the answers of those four questions and what it means, what when it pertains to connection, to service, to speaking, through communication and connecting with other people that can relate to what you're called to serve with, but can also relate to what you've gone through, your history, your story.
Yeah, for sure. So I did allude to your model of service of speaking in the introduction. So how can we scale our business to seven figures using the service of speaking model? This is what you teach your clients, right?
It's exactly what we teach people, right? And one of the things that and I hope we have time for this here, but one of the things that I love to teach, to kind of just a quick story to kind of like educate the value of the framework, because I'm a big believer of making sure that you equip people properly so they can use the framework.
Hmm.
So, quick story on this. I know you live in Iowa. I live in Connecticut. So
Hmm.
I don't know who's closer to the water, but what I'll say is, let's imagine for a second, and I want those listening to imagine that there's an ocean. There's this huge ocean, like very, very big. And in this ocean, we have more sales, more opportunity, more growth, more, leads, right? There's more speaking opportunities, and it's all in this ocean. We're going to call the ocean of abundance. And about 100 feet from the ocean, we have this beautiful table. And on this table, we have small containers. We have really, really big containers. We have some larger containers. And here's the thing, Brian, that all of these containers have in common. All of these containers, they all have a leak inside of them. And the leak is actually like in terms of how big they are. Like as water is coming into the containers, like if you go to pour water into these containers, as water is going in, it's also going out on the opposite side as fast as the water is coming in, right? And let's imagine for a second that a little bit away from the table, but near the table, there's this separate huge bucket that represents what you get to keep, like the capacity, if you will, like your capacity. And it actually represents infinity and beyond because it literally has the storage to fill all of the ocean's water and some, and it still won't even move. Like it has infinity and beyond capacity type. Follow me up to now?
Okay, yep.
Now let's imagine for a second somebody coming up to the table and they grab a container and then they walk the 100 feet to the ocean and then they go and scoop up water and then they walk back to the bucket so they can pour the water that they think they got in the container into their bucket so they can keep it. What do you think they're going to find?
Well, the water is going to be draining out of the bucket while you're walking.
Exactly. And that's what 85% of business owners do, Brian, is that they throw the shiny container out, they go and get a new one and repeat the cycle over and over again. It's not until the business owner stops and says, wait a second, it doesn't matter how much more sales, more growth I go after, it won't matter until I plug in the leak. And the reason why this is important is because our services speaking framework isn't just about helping people get on stages, because some people aren't just ready to get on stages. They need to first plug in their leaks. So as they go in front of the TEDx talk, as they go in front of the impact stage, as they go in front of the 100, 500, 1,000 people, when they get on stage, they have the right systems and structures in place. They have the right, leaks covered. So as they go for more, they get to keep more of what they capture. And that's why our framework is not just about telling people a bunch of strategies to get online and to grow, but it's really helping them grow in a healthy way.
Fantastic. We are coming up against our next break. We are talking to Israel Duran, and we're talking about the service of speaking model that he helps people use to get their businesses ready so that when they speak on stage, it's effective, they can make impact, and they can make some money. We're going to explore those themes a little bit more after the break. And I would also love to ask, how can we find high-profile speaking gigs and the biggest things that event planners look for when hiring a speaker, and so much more. We'll be right back after the break. This is Success Profiles Radio. Okay. Commercials
Can you
playing
hear
in the
me?
background. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what happened there. Unfortunately, my mic gave out. My Shure mic gave out. So, thank you for the rebound there.
Yeah, for sure. And my producer, Roy, will edit this so it sounds seamless when the replay happens.
Awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. What is up for you next when we're done today?
I'm gonna go be with the children and the wife.
Oh, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, she needs. I have 5 children.
Oh,
So
wow.
you know how it is.
God bless you. That's awesome.
Yeah. How
For
about
sure.
yourself?
Yeah. Probably gonna have dinner, um, and probably just decompress for the rest of the evening.
Nice.
Yeah, I spent a good portion of this afternoon putting this show together and working on the monthly magazine that I do called Ultimate Achievers Magazine. And I'm going to be ready to submit that to my graphic designer later this week. And it should be published sometime in the next 10 days or so. I'm pretty excited.
More than they currently
That's
have. And this
pretty
show
awesome.
will clearly demonstrate the principles: if I can do it, you can do it. So let's get back to the show. This is Success Profiles Radio. And here again is your host, Brian K. Wright.
And we are back. This is Success Profiles Radio. And if you have not subscribed to Ultimate Achievers Magazine, you can do that. It's a monthly online publication, and it's based on helping entrepreneurs. It's based on personal development. And if you are interested in improving yourself, your life, your business, or any aspect thereof, that's what you need to do. So go to ultimateachieversmagazine.com. The 7-day trial is just $1. You can pick your subscription option, and you can read any and all issues going all the way back to December 2017. So we've been doing this for a good long time. We'd be honored to have you along for the ride. So Israel, let me ask you, as we are talking about getting businesses ready to speak on stage, a lot of people love hearing the answer to how do we find high profile speaking gigs that actually generate revenue?
That's a great question. There's two tools I'm going to give your audience here.
Mm-hmm.
There's an organic tool, and then there's also an AI tool, okay? There's something called TalkWalker. And there's several other different examples that you can find online, but it's essentially an alerting software that alerts you when there's something that goes online for people looking for, anything you really want to look for. The secret here, though, is making sure you scan requests for speakers, requests for motivational speakers, requests for faith-based speakers. I mean, whatever your niche is, you want to make sure you have those alerts set up, because literally every single day, like if I look at what I have on my end right now, I probably have several, like 2,000 plus opportunities that are in my inbox probably over the last just few months of I have so many opportunities to speak that I've probably done at least 40 engagements in the last 90 days, podcasts, stages alike.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the secrets is using TalkWalker, right? So that's a gift for you. And again, there's training online that you can check it out, but it's really leveraging the alerts. Now, here's the other tool, right? I'm a big believer in AI, and we actually have a platform called leadsandsales.io. You could always go to leadsandsales.io, leadsandsales.io, and you can check it out. Or you could just go to our website, Israel Duran. But we have a platform where what we do is we essentially leverage the AI and a couple other systems to really hone in on what your specific topic of engagement is. And then we have a curation process and a distribution system where we actually go out and essentially pitch for you to help land those opportunities. And we're very intentional about, okay, what specific stages would be key to help you grow specifically, and then help curate those opportunities and go from there. So those are the two strategies or tools that I would recommend.
Fantastic. So what are the biggest things that event planners look for when they're deciding to hire a speaker?
I love this question because you'll be surprised, Brian, at how many speakers, unfortunately, don't act like professionals. And I train a lot of speakers or CEOs and entrepreneurs that want to use speaking. And I'll just riff here and give a few suggestions. Number one, you definitely want to be personable, and you want to be someone that actually is in their best interest. Like that event planner is bringing you in for a reason, for a purpose. They identified you as or an HR professional, right? Depending on what gig you have, right? That individual has identified you, maybe through a referral, maybe they heard you speak before. So you want to be very personable with them and connect with them, right? Seek to understand what their pain points are and seek to really help fill those points in, right? Because they're not just bringing you on to speak and to pay you just to check a box, right?
Right.
They're bringing you on to speak and to pay because there's either a people that you have to train and empower. There's either a vision that you have to push. There's either sales that you have to help generate. There's a reason why you're being paid to get on there. So really be personable and seek to really help that individual. Here's another angle for those of you that are going after corporate gigs. Here are two different marketing statements or phrases that you can share within your communication with the event organizer that will increase your speaking gigs and closure. You're going to thank me later on this one, and Brian for having me on.
Yes.
Number one, the biggest thing right now that corporations and organizations have, believe it or not, is retention. I mean, as crazy as that sounds, I know in a job, but it's the reality. They have problems with retention. So they'll go ahead and bring people on. They'll hire them, but then and they'll spend a significant amount of money to bring them on, and then they'll leave. Where what happens? The corporation, just trains somebody else to potentially go to another competitor, right? And
Right.
they don't want that. They just spent the money to train and develop that individual, depending on how much time they stayed there, and they wasted all that money and time, right? And they don't want that. So if you can come in and you can develop a process or a training that can create connection or help like increase retention, like making sure people don't leave, as weird as that sounds and as simple as it sounds, you're going to get opportunities over and over again. And let me tell you something, AI is not going to replace that. Okay. AI is
Right.
not going to replace that. We still need the human core. And let me tell you number two of that. Let me tell you the other caveat that you're going to thank me for, and Brian. Number two is speaking to the Gen Z market or beyond, right? It's not that the Gen Z audience is not wise. There's a lot of wise and intelligent people on the Gen Z side. They just need to understand why would they want to stay for a corporation, right? And
Mm-hmm.
why would they want to stay in the workplace, right? This new enterprise or new generation, I should say, that we're going into, they're an enterprise and a generation of entrepreneurs, meaning like that's what they think. That's how they're thinking. So companies are becoming more and more hard or harder to keep on the younger generation because of this mindset and the frustration that they have faced in terms of the Gen Z market with seeing everything that the previous generation did wrong, right? That's why they have this mindset. So if you're able to come in and make it attractable for the younger generation, and you're able to come in and teach or speak on something that can help retain more of the young generation in an organization, that is also something that's going to get you the job rather than the other person, if you will.
Wow.
And there's so much opportunity out there. There's abundance. You just have to know how to market and position yourself and have a clear message for the organizations that you want to speak with and the organizers.
Absolutely. And so let's talk about getting paid to speak. Now, lots of people, when you think about paid speaking, they think you're getting a fee to do your talk. But speaking to sell can be much more lucrative if you're good at it. Which model do you prefer?
Oh, 100% of the time, Brian, you don't have to even pay me. I'll speak. Because here's the thing, right? It's when you look at statistics, right? Again, I'm a data guy.
Hmm.
78% of speakers, 78% of them, they haven't had at least 3 gigs in the last 12 months, like paid gigs. Most of the speakers that are getting the gigs, and I know many, I know one of my clients, he gets about like 36 a year. It's pretty crazy. He's up there. He's like in the 1%.
Hmm.
Like they're making on average maybe 300 to 400K a year, right? So when it comes to business, that's not crazy numbers, but here's the other thing that they're struggling with. They're struggling with the travel, being away from family. So I work with a lot of speakers that they come to me, are entrepreneurs, and they say, "Hey, Israel, look, I love the speaking game, but there's another side that I know you unlocked, which is the online space where I get to speak at my house or my home or my home office, and I also get to monetize and take care of my family and not travel as much. Like I want that too, right?" So I always prefer that people learn how to sell from the stage and sell without selling, like connection,
Yeah.
because that's where the real money is made. It's not only made in the 5K, the 15K, the 25K keynote that you can command. That's cool, right? But it's made in the back end, the follow up, and it's made by selling through with the stage and playing that game. You'll
Yeah.
make more, especially if you know what you're doing and you're
Hmm.
trained, you will make 3 to 4 times more than just getting paid to speak.
Yeah. I love that too. I mean, I've had speaking fee paid gigs that weren't a lot, but those were usually for friends. I knew they didn't have a budget. But the ones where I've done the speak to sell, I almost always sell something. So it's awesome. I mean, you can make a few $100s, you can make a few $1,000 for, an hour of your time. And in fact, in one case, I think I made a couple grand in 10 minutes. And that's all the time I had. And I made some sales. You have to build the value first, of course, but yes, it can be very, very lucrative. And I love your answer to this. I also do want to ask you about building a personal brand that attracts $1 million opportunities, because if someone is not attracted to your brand, you're not going to have the opportunities to start with. And we've already talked a little bit about that, but speak to that a little bit, please.
Yeah, there's a principle, and it's called the principle of influence, right?
Hmm.
And in the third step of the principle of the impact, which we've talked about, you can see how influence is one of the steps. And when it comes to building brands, influence is one of the main key components, right? Because think about it like this, right? Like I'm doing an event coming up with one of my good friends. He's an actor. He's been around since Hollywood for quite some time. His name is Kevin. If you remember, you remember the show Hercules.
Yes. Oh, I know
So
who you're
he
talking about. Yeah,
yeah
yep.
yeah. So Kevin Servo, me and him, we do a couple things together. But now we're doing this event together. So like using him as an example, right? A great, amazing actor. Unfortunately, Hollywood, he left Hollywood because of his own reasons, because unfortunately there's some things that he just wasn't in agreement with, and I kind of agree with him too.
Hmm.
And we're partnering together. People that don't know who I am, but they know who he is, instantly where they see him, they're like, okay, who's this Israel guy that's with them? Right? Instantly I go from in the darkness to now being in their forefront. Like now they're asking, like, who is this guy? Right? So that's what influence can do, right? But Brian, you'll have the same impact, right? With the people
Hmm.
that are listening to the show now, right? They're following you, they're your market. Like, cool, who's this Israel guy Brian is interviewing?
Hmm.
It's the same essence will happen as well. And the reason why it happens is because of influence. So building a brand that has the high perceived value is all about building the influence and the collaboration to then connect with those individuals that you can do business with and serve and help and collaborate.
Yeah, for sure. We are coming up against our final break. I cannot believe how quickly this is going. And when we return, we'll talk about positioning your business for major acquisitions or partnership. We'll talk about how to create a high ticket offer from the stage, and we'll talk about his book. And we'll do all of that and much more when we come back. This is Success Profiles Radio. Down the stretch we come. When we return, this is Success Profiles Radio. Please stay with us. Don't go away. We will be right back. Awesome stuff.
Great conversation, by the way. You are definitely getting some juice here on this call.
Oh, for sure. Yep. Been doing this since January 2012. So over
This
13
is,
years
yeah,
and over 600 episodes. I did a solo show last week. It was awesome.
wow. That's awesome, man. Good for you.
Thank you. Yeah, a whole hour by myself. I've done that a few times.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to connect. If you're looking for amazing guests, I would love to connect some people with you. Some people that have some decent sized audiences as well.
I would love that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Kevin Sorbo. He sounds amazing. I mean, I see him from afar. I don't know him personally, but he seems like a really great guy.
Yeah. Kevin, I was just talking to him last week. We have an event coming up in July. You're more than
Good.
welcome to pass through. And it's in Connecticut, so you're gonna have to come on stateside over here. But uh, there's not a lot of flies this area though, for sure.
No, I wouldn't think so.
And this show will clearly demonstrate the principles: if I can do it, you can do it. So let's get back to the show. This is Success Profiles Radio. And here again is your host, Brian K. Wright.
And we are back. This is Success Profiles Radio, and down the stretch we come. And if you've been listening to the commercials, you know that I help people write their books, whether I do it for you, A to Z, whether I do it with you in the form of coaching, or whether I join your journey after you've already written it in the form of editing and coaching and publishing. I've done all of those and any of all of those. So if you do want to have a conversation about getting your book across the finish line, go to callwithbrian.com. That's my calendar. Once again, callwithbrian.com. And I would be so happy to have a conversation with you and see where I can help you. So, Israel, let's talk a little bit about positioning our business for major acquisitions and partnerships. Because if you've got an attractive enough brand and someone really, really wants to partner up with you, they may want to buy you up or work with you somehow, right?
Yes, for sure. Because when we talk about business, right? Typically, when someone sold into business or sold the idea of getting into business, there's two thought patterns that are typically at the start or the inception or the original point, right? Number one, it's this is the majority one, unfortunately, because it's the incorrect one, but this is where the majority of people start with, is I was working a job and I don't want to work my job anymore. I want to go ahead and start my own business, right? So they go into that phase, and then they typically, let's say they were a plumber and now they're doing their own plumbing, and they have their own little company. They have maybe one or two employees, and then they start to build their business, right? And they're self-employed. They're doing their own business, and then the business grows a little bit, and then unfortunately they go into what we call setting themselves up in their own prison, and then they get stuck, right? They're stuck in entrepreneurship, and they don't have a business. They do have a business, but the business has them. The business owns them because they built the system with them being inside of it.
Yeah.
So what happens is, from an investor perspective, it's going to be very hard for somebody to come to invest in that business because it's not an independent machine. It's not a well-oiled machine. Nevertheless, it's a self-employed job, right? So if somebody would to buy that business and you were to leave, they would have to fill you in with somebody else, or they would have to, worse off, that investor would have to go in and do the work for you, right? And investors like myself, I'm an angel investor. We don't have that mindset. Like when we invest to have our money work for us and then have our expertise, help add value to the company that we're looking to invest with, right? VCs are a little bit different. Venture capitalists are a little bit different because it's more of either a corporate play or a banking play, and it's a different type of investor or a different type of family office. But when it comes to angel investors, I mean, we don't want to buy ourselves a job, right? Nevertheless,
Right.
VCs don't want that either. So the second approach, or the origin point of business, is more important. And unfortunately, Brian, probably less than 4% of entrepreneurs actually are aware of this starting point. So over 90% of small businesses, they start wrong, right? And you know this, if you start wrong and you're on the wrong track, wrong side of the track, as they say, you're probably not going to end well, right? So number two has to do with what we call beginning with the end in mind. And it's not a Stephen Covey thing. It's more about a law that's been around since the beginning of time, right? Like, I'm a big believer in God. I believe that God finished everything, then he created it. And I believe that when we look at business, we have to start from the end in mind. We have to think about our exit plan in the beginning. Like, I am creating this entity. If you're going to start a business, right? I'm creating this entity to sell it, to exit it in the future for XYZ. Even if you don't want to sell it, even if your intention is not to sell it, to pass it down to your children's children, it's going to serve you better and your family and your time to build it with that in mind, because when you build it with an exit plan in mind, you'll build the business apart from you. Now, you still may have to work in it for a little bit and do some things until it gets kind of like some legs and it starts walking on its own. But you'll build it with systems and you'll build it as a machine. So in the future, if you want to sell it, it will become investable to an angel investor or a VC firm that would be desirable to it, because now there's an actual business, there's values, there's assets, there's systems in place that could sell for a multiplier, right? And that's what it's all about. Now, there is another angle, Brian, where instead of starting a business, you just buy a business, and that is actually the best way. Unfortunately, not everyone is in a position to buy a business. There are some ways that you can actually buy a business with little or no money down, just using wisdom and creativity. Again, education and mentorship can help in that area. We have ways of doing it. But again, it's like there's so many other deals out there that it's not just about even growing your own business, but how can you grow an ecosystem that can attract collaboration and connection, and now you can go exponential with the opportunities, with the service, with the impact. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. So what goes into creating a high ticket offer that sells really well from stage?
It's all about speed. People want to solve their problem with speed. So if you can communicate an offer that helps people buy back their time, gives them a great experience, and there's a no hassle experience, people will pay high ticket if they're the right qualified audience.
That is beautiful. And that's probably one of the best answers I think I've ever heard to answer that question. And you're right, people will pay more money to have their problem solved really, really fast. So tell us about your book. It's called The Service of Speaking: How to Impact, Inspire, and Influence the Masses with Your Message. The title's perfect because it tells you exactly what your book is about. When I help people write their books and they want their title to be cute, I'm going to be like, no one knows what your book is about if that's what the title is. So make your title, tell us exactly what your book is about, and you did. So why did you write it?
I wrote the book because I saw a lot of entrepreneurs, CEOs, and coaches that lacked the influence, lacked the systems online to attract more of their ideal clients and partners and collaborators. And speaking has changed my life. And I wanted people to have the same system that I did. But at the same time, I wanted them to also have like all their blind spots covered in business. So as they went for more opportunities, they captured more of the opportunities and was able to keep more what they captured, right? Because wealth is not just about making the money, but it's about keeping the money. And I wanted people to make it, but also to keep it.
Right, absolutely. So, what are some of the best takeaways you want us to get from this? Obviously, you want us to buy the book, and it's on Amazon. It's on your website, israelduran.com. Is that right?
If you go to Amazon, the book is for $50 a copy. But if you go to my website, you scroll down to the book section, you're actually able to get the book for $19.95, and you just have to pay for the shipping and handling.
Hmm.
But you do get a great discount there.
Fantastic. So, what are your top two or three takeaways that you want us to get from this when we read it?
Number one takeaway is going for more is extremely important, but make sure that you have the right structure, the right systems in place, the right strategy, the right support. So as you go for more stages, you get to actually steward that wealth and take care of your family, right? And for future generations. I'm all about helping people build what we call inheritance wealth, which is making sure that you can leave an inheritance for your children's children. And if you don't have children, for your charity, because that's what it's all about. It's not just about the money, but it's about the legacy that we're going to live and the dynasty that we will leave.
That's wonderful. I love that. So, how do you build trust with an audience?
I love the question. You build trust by one of the key ways of building trust is keeping your word, obviously. Every time you make a promise, make sure you fulfill it. But an even more weightier way is you ask questions. You ask questions like you're doing on this, show, this amazing success show. You're asking me questions, and you've been doing an excellent job. Probably one of the best that I've ever interviewed with, and I've been through many different interviews. You're doing a great job, and you're asking questions that are actually valuable because it's getting me to think, but it's also helping the audience.
Hmm.
And these are not cookie cutter questions. These are questions of power, right?
Hmm.
That's how you build trust. You ask the
Yeah.
right questions, and you allow people to answer them, and you continue to ask questions.
Absolutely. So tell us about your TEDx talk. How did this happen for you? I know it's had over 360,000 views. That's pretty amazing. Do you tell us about your TEDx talk, and how do you attribute the wide viewership that you've had on that?
The TEDx talk was a blessing because it came when I turned 30 years of age. And, it's a very emotional time for me because my dad, as you know, died at 29 years old. So it was one of those moments where I was, just very thankful for to be alive, but also remembering my dad is, I didn't remember much of him, but, just paying homage to him. I actually talked about him during my TEDx talk. And I talked about my experience as well when I had my NDE, my near death experience at the age of 7. And I feel like the podcast, the show got a lot of views and engagement, not only because I have a decent sized audience, but because of how transparent I was, right? And if anybody wants to watch it, they can go just type in Israel Duran TEDx and you'll see it. But that's what I believe was the difference, the distinction to have it a success, to have it as had been a success.
That's fantastic. I love that. So tell us about your 5-day challenge.
Yeah, our 5-day challenge, we've been running for the little under a year and a half now. We've served over 2,000 people in this challenge. And it's a challenge where a lot of the principles and teachings that I'm teaching now, we actually literally teach it in 5 days, but we go deep with helping people to clarify their message, clarify their machine or their offer or product that they're going to sell to monetize. And we show people how to get on more stages, how to use the online space to grow their businesses. And it's been a fun ride. We've served like I said, over 2,000 people. And every single time I do it, I get better. Sometimes I get emotional because some of the stories and the history, it's pretty amazing. But yeah, I would, if anybody wants to come to the challenge, we typically do one a month. We have our next event is going to actually be coming out. Our next challenge is in August because we have the SOS Service of Speaking live event happening in July of 2025. And that invitation would be open for anyone, for you, Brian, and anyone else listening. And yeah,
Fantastic. We've got less than 2 minutes until the end. What do very few people know about you that might surprise us?
that I love fishing. I like
Really?
geek out with fishing. It's pretty crazy, but I love fishing. Probably going to
Wow.
try to go there tomorrow or
Oh wow, that's absolutely fantastic. How important is your faith to you?
my faith is extremely important to me because I know it sounds like a cliche, but I would not be here on this call if it wasn't for God and his grace and it's extremely important for me and my family.
Absolutely. And the question I love to ask everyone: who inspires and motivates you? And then I'll ask you how we can find you.
What inspires me, my mom inspires me a lot. Seeing my mom go through what she went through as a young, with what she went through with my dad, and seeing her work hard and move forward, it's an inspiration. Apart from my mom, obviously, that my number one would be Jesus Christ of
Yes.
Nazareth. His stories, his life, the relationship I have with him is an inspiration every single day to continue to
Fantastic.
go forward and move forward.
Fantastic. And once again, Israel, how can we find you? How can we try with you and vibe with you?
IsraelDuran.com. If you DM me the word blueprint on my Instagram, I'll send you a free gift at no cost just because you're listening to Brian Success Show.
All right. Thank you so much, Israel, for being here. This was awesome and amazing.
Thank you for having me, Brian.
And thanks to all of you for listening. This has been Success Profiles Radio. Join us every Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern, where I interview another world-class achiever, learn what they did, what they overcame, and the lessons we can learn along the way. Take care, everyone. Have a fantastic week, and I look forward to being with you again next time. Have a great week. Goodbye, everyone.